Hey guys, David Wilson here, Delaware Crawl Space Company. Today we're here under construction talking about sump pumps and water alarms. So let's get at it. Okay guys, so what we got here, this is a Cellular 3rd horsepower sump pump. This sump pump will pump out 45 gallons a minute. Possibly you're never going to get 45 gallons a minute into your crawl space. So this sump pump is sufficient for almost all crawl spaces. In some larger crawl spaces you would need 2, but in most cases, average home that we encapsulate and put a French drain sump pump system in, 1 sump pump is going to be sufficient. So the reason these sump pumps fail, a couple different reasons. This float switch that goes up and down as the water rises in the sump pit, this float switch will continue to rise as the water is coming up. Once it clicks, the sump pump's going to kick on, pump out the water. If this float switch gets stuck for any reason, the sump pump is not going to kick on. So at that point, we want you to know when something fails here. So we're going to get into talking about some water alarms here in a minute, this is one reason why the sump pump would fail is because of this float switch getting stuck. Another reason, the sump pump just burns up, it just stops working. Or a third reason would be the electrical power that powers the sump pump. When we install a sump pump and a dehumidifier in your crawl space, it's on a GFI protected outlet. So GFIs are kind of notorious for tripping at times. So if the GFI outlet trips and you do not have power anymore to the sump pump, we need you to know that right away, which is one of the reasons why we installed the alarm. So that's it pretty much for the sump pump. Now we're going to get into the alarms. Okay, so the first alarm we're going to talk about is our cellular alarm. So this alarm is basically just like us putting a cell phone in your crawl space. You're going to be able to receive text messages on your phone, and it can send text messages up to 3 phones. So the way this unit works is we install it in your crawl space with some sensors. So we'll talk about the sensors here. This is our high water detection sensor. So what this means is we're going to lay this on the ground next to your sump pump, or maybe next to your crawl space entrance door, or maybe there's an area that might be low where we think some water could accumulate if there was ever, let's just say, an ice maker to your refrigerator had a leak, or you had a pipe burst in your house, or water was leaking in through your crawl space door. Maybe for any reason that you would get water in your crawl space. If water comes in contact with this sensor, you're going to receive a text message on your phone. So that's one protection. The next, probably one of the most important part of this alarm is the fact that this is another sensor that's going to let us know if the sump pump fails for any reason. So we install this. This is just like the float switch that we had on the sump pump, which is basically just a vertical float switch that goes up and down. So if the water fills up in that sump basin and it goes past where the sump pump should have kicked on, and maybe the water rises another 2 to 3 inches, it's going to trigger this little float to rise up and trigger the alarm. So then you would receive text messages letting you know that this sump pump has stopped working, basically. So the other alarm feature that this will also send you text messages to is if the electrical power goes out, this unit is battery backup. So for any reason, the electrical power, let's just say it's a thunderstorm, the power goes out, you're going to receive a text message on your phone saying the power is out. The power comes back on 10 minutes later, you're going to see another text message on your phone saying the power is restored. So if the power goes out to this unit, it does have a battery backup system in this, so you can continue to receive text messages for about up to 24 hours. Another nice feature, let's just say the GFI breaker trips in the crawl space, or the trips in the panel, or the GFI trips, the outlet trips in the crawl space. This will send you a text message letting you know the power's out. If you do nothing, or you didn't receive the text message, About 12 hours to maybe 18 hours later, you're going to receive a text message from this alarm again saying that you have a low battery in this alarm. So basically what that means is there's no power to this unit, and now this unit's running on battery backup alone. If you still do nothing, you don't reset the GFI, you'll receive another text message maybe about another 3 to 4 hours later saying that the batteries are critically low. So the nice thing about this is no matter what happens in the crawl space, you're going to be notified if there's a pipe leak maybe in your house or water's getting into the crawl space. You'll be notified if the sump pump doesn't kick on for any reason, the float switch gets stuck, or the pump just burns up altogether, or if the electrical power is out to that sump pump that's in the sump basin. In some cases, the cellular signal is not real good, so we have to install an antenna. It's basically a booster antenna that will just allow this to be able to you to be able to receive those text messages. With this alarm, both of the premium alarms that we carry are both the same price. The only difference is with the Wi-Fi version, there is no cost added once you buy the alarm, whereas the cellular alarm, you're going to pay a $50 annual fee for that cellular service. You'll sign up with the alarm company and they'll just bill your credit card annually $50. So now we'll get into the Wi-Fi alarm and the benefits of that. Okay, so the next alarm we're going to talk about, also one of our premium water alarms. This is a Wi-Fi based alarm, so we're going to connect this to your Wi-Fi that you already have existing, whether you're with Comcast or who you're with. It also has a lot of the same, two of the same features that our other cellular alarm has. The only difference is this doesn't have that small sensor that will just tell you if a pipe bursts in your house or you're getting water in through the foundation door or something like that. It's not going to notify you of that. However, it does do electrical power failure, and it also has the same type of float switch that if the sump pump stops working, it's going to let you know that either the sump pump's burned up or the float switch is stuck. So some of the same features as the other alarm, except for there's no annual fee with this once it's set up. It does do a few other things, like it will let you know, you can once you download the app, you can go online and just see how many cycles per day that the sump pump kicked on and off, how many gallons per minute that it pumps out, or how many gallons per day roughly. It will kind of give you a snapshot of when you have maybe a 3 to 4 inches of rain, like what's going on, like how many times is my sump pump actually kicking on. Not that we really care about that, but it will kind of give you some other little features. But also a great alarm, and then next we're really just going to talk about just kind of our basic bare bones alarm. Okay, so the last and most basic alarm, this alarm will not send any text messages to your phone at all. It's only basically just a high water detection, so it kind of like the first alarm we talked about, the cellular alarm, where it has this sensor that if this sensor gets wet, water comes in contact with this, it's just going to be an audible alarm only. So it's almost just like us putting a smoke detector down in your crawl space. It's going to beep very loud to notify you, but you will not get any text messages on your phone. So this is really just the most basic. You're not going to know when the power's out to the sump pump. You're not going to know if the sump pump fails for any reason. Only will you know when the water fills up high enough on top of the encapsulation liner that then this would go off. What we would use this for mostly is if we don't have a sump pump in your crawl space. There's no need, it's really dry. We would just put a dehumidifier, and then you have a condensation pump that pumps out the moisture from the dehumidifier. We would set an alarm like this next to the dehumidifier. So basically, if that condensation pump fails down there, then you're just going to hear this audible alarm. The downsides, we live here, in Lewis, Delaware. So a lot of the crawl spaces we do are rental homes or vacation homes. So, you know, if you have a vacation home, this is probably not ideal. You're not going to know when something goes wrong, which then just the cellular alarm or the Wi-Fi alarm is just a much better way to go. So just kind of think about that, you know, as you're, you know, working with, you know, designing your crawl space and some of the things that you want to add or put into the crawl space. So in some cases, our customers really just worry about their sump pump losing power or the sump pump failing for any reason and them not being there. And in those cases, we would install a battery backup sump pump. So what that is basically a sump pump just like this. It's still our Zolar sump pump, cast iron. But then there's another pump that mounts on top of this. And what it does is if this sump pump loses power, there's no power to this, the smaller pump that sits on top of this has a battery hookup. It's basically a marine grade battery that keeps it charged when there is power to it. And so if this power goes out to this sump pump can pump out the water for about up to 24 hours or so. So in case of a big storm and the power goes out, your battery backup pump can continue to pump that water out of the crawl space until the power comes back onto this pump. If this pump fails for any reason, let's just say the flow switch is stuck or it stops working, there again, this battery backup pump can continue to pump the water out. The one thing we just want to make sure is, and that's why we're talking about, I know we're talking about alarms today, but when you have these two pumps, there's going to be a float switch that's on your primary pump and there's another float switch that's on the secondary pump. So what we do is when we install this alarm, we install this float switch somewhere between this primary pump float switch and your secondary pump float switch. And what we want to do is if the water fills up and this pump doesn't kick on, we want your alarm to actually send you a text message saying that this pump has failed. Because we don't want this battery backup pump to continue to pump all the water in your crawl space for maybe several months. We want this primary pump to be the primary source of water, you know, extraction out of the crawl space. So the battery backup pump is only for emergency situations where you're losing power or this sump pump fails. So that's why we strategically install these alarms, so that way you know when this fails and you know when your battery backup pump is working. So that's going to finish us up for today. Hopefully this kind of makes sense about the alarms, the sump pumps, how they work, how they function, how they kind of work together as one unit, and why like a system like this is really important in your crawl space. So if you have any more questions, you can give us a call at the office, 302-703-1880. Like us on Facebook and YouTube, and see you next time.